Welcome back, everybody, to the Filmmakers Roundtable, the podcast dedicated to films, filmmaking, and getting insight from filmmakers working in the industry. I'm Thomas.
I'm Dylan.
And unfortunately, Brian could not be here with us today. He actually called in sick on us, so sadly, but it's all good. We've got plans for next week, which we'll talk about a little later down the line. So
big plans.
Yeah. So
to answer the question, how are we?
Yeah, how we doing? So
Well, all things considered, we're doing fine, except Tom and I have agreed. We've both been busy, though he's been busier than me this week.
Well, yeah. But I'll get to that. So that kind of ties into our next one. What are we working on? What are you working on, Dylan?
Well, I'm still working on a few side projects for myself. I managed to make some progress on them this week. Did a little bit of filming for myself. But as there's still always the omnipresent responsibility of my work, we actually just went back and refilmed something for our client. But that is a tirade for another time. I'm not going to go into that right now, but it has been keeping me busy.
Right, same. So what have I been working on? I actually worked myself to near exhaustion this past week.
Hence why I said you were busier.
Yeah, so between my part-time job and the videos I'm trying to do on this channel, and my personal channel, and on top of just living a life, because that's also important to me, also with my health and everything. So it all fell on me, so I had to take a couple days to recharge myself and sleep in a few times. So
you always got to take time for yourself.
Yeah, going to bed at 3 a.m., waking up at 9 a.m., just so I can have enough time to go for a run and make breakfast and everything. So that that takes a lot out of you. So as a result, I couldn't do much progress on my short film Awaken, or really anything to do on this channel. I did. The only thing I made some big progress on is a wedding I've been working on. So because I've been stuck, because the wedding, it was a very small scale wedding, so there wasn't a lot to work with when editing a highlight film, but I finally made some progress, made my creativity, spark and everything. So, hopefully by this week I'll be back to everything. And also, for those wondering about the SoundCloud and iTunes, what's the deal with that? We shall hopefully have that sorted out by the end of the month. So. And all the episodes on SoundCloud and iTunes will be back on there. So, So, if nothing else, let's move on to our next topic: movie news.
Let's get right into the news, shall we?
Right.
Oddly enough, since last week's episode was about cinematic universes, we've got ourselves some news from Blumhouse Productions. They are going to hopefully revive the Dark Universe.
Mm-hmm.
And now what that entails is that, according to this article from comicbook.com, producer James Blum hopes to raise iconic slasher franchise Friday the 13th from the grave, and is opening to resurrecting the Universal Pictures' mostly abandoned Dark Universe. For those who aren't familiar, the Dark Universe referred to the cinematic universe that Universal tried to do with their monsters, which was going to supposedly be kicked off. Well, it was originally going to be kicked off with Dracula Untold, but that didn't do so well. Then it was going to be kicked off with The Mummy. That didn't do so well.
No.
And then there was the going theory that they were going to continue making these movies, and then the one that stuck the landing would be the starting point.
Right.
James Blum participated in a Twitter Q&A Thursday. This article was written actually last week. Sorry, I can't talk today. These questions inquired about Blumhouse taking on other iconic and valuable properties like The Crow and Scream following its revival of the long-running Halloween franchise, which, for those who don't know, hasn't seen a installment since Rob Zombie's reboot sequel in 2009. For those who aren't familiar, Blumhouse is known for Paranormal Activity, Insidious, Sinister, Split, and the upcoming Glass, which looks a bit interesting, actually.
Right.
So, Tom and I actually had a small talk about this when I found this article. We actually found this article last week.
Right.
And we were talking about...
In fact, it was right after we recorded the last episode of the Roundtable.
Yes, it was.
The podcast, so...
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And it harkens back to what Tom was talking about when we were talking about the attempt at a Universal Monsters cinematic universe. Blumhouse is strictly known for horror, so these movies are going to be horror right up front.
Yeah, and I think this is something we were talking about. Something Red Letter Media also brought up is like, these classic properties. They're horror movies. They're not action movies, which is what Universal tried to do. So I think this will be interesting to see how this pans out. And even though I'm not a particularly fan of horror, it's mostly just personal taste, particularly with modern horror films. But I can see why they have a following. But I certainly hope that something decent comes out of these films, or if this goes through to fruition.
Oh, I just read further into the article. There was this one passage I missed. They might be having Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
All right.
Oh, wait, hold on. This was under Universal, never mind.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Context, yeah. This was going to be under Universal with The Mummy, how it turned out. Yeah. Though I will say that would have been interesting, but out of the two of us, I am a connoisseur of horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
I love going to horror movies, especially with large audiences in the theater, just to see, because it's always a good time. One experience I didn't get into on our Friday show was the time I saw the Friday the 13th reboot in theaters. A long story short, the experience was really good, and it did raise that film up in quality.
Mm-hmm.
But in hindsight, the film, I need to watch that again before I say anything, but yeah, that experience did that. But I think Blumhouse has a viable chance to pull this off.
Yeah.
Because not only do their films look good, they're made on the cheap. So budgetary issues and making a profit aren't going to be an issue because the budgets are going to be relatively small compared to other AAA releases.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and a prime example, even though this was sold to them, would have been The Visit.
Oh, yeah.
It was done on the cheap, but it looked really good, despite my feelings about that film.
Yeah, okay. So, nothing else. On to our next bit of news. The Five Nights at Freddy's movie officially has a script. So, Dylan, you brought this to my attention.
Yes, I did.
At the same time, the Blumhouse news did. So, Five Nights at Freddy's... everybody knows about it.
If you've been on the internet, you've heard of Five Nights at Freddy's at some point.
Yeah. So we won't go into that, what it is. So, but they announced it a movie like a couple years ago,
2 years ago at most, and people. It was originally going to be under Warner Brothers, directed by Chris Columbus.
Really?
Yes, it was.
Oh, that would have sucked.
Oh, come on, Chris Columbus isn't that bad.
He's hit and miss.
Oh, I will say that he was a bit missed on Pixels.
No, hugely missed. He was completely wrong to make that movie, but we won't go into that.
Yeah, but it was the rights were acquired by Warner Brothers, and they were going to do it, but we heard nothing for 2 years until it got canceled when we found out that Scott Cawthon, the game's developer, didn't have that big of a hand in the project.
Right.
So that got canceled, and then
there's a shocker.
So he went to Blumhouse, and now he's had a big hand in the scripting process, and he actually posted this news to the Five Nights at Freddy's Steam thread in the Steam community section, stating how he's been working on the script with his co-writer of the Five Nights at Freddy's books, Kira, and they actually have the first draft of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie completed. Now in this post he says that he has sent it to Jason Blum, and he says that he likes it, but there obviously are going to be some touch-ups and changes before the final film comes out.
Of course.
The interesting thing to point out is that for Five Nights at Freddy's fans, this movie, according to Scott, is supposed to take place during the events of the first game. But along with that, he says that there have been outlines created for 2 more movies.
Well, assuming they do it right, they'll do it right. They won't, it won't just be a setup movie.
Yep.
It'll be a movie that can stand on its own.
And I actually touched with you on this. Whereas a lot of people say definitely the heyday of Five Nights at Freddy's has passed us.
Right.
but it's in a unique position.
Mm.
Whenever Scott has had a history of saying, this is the final thing I'm doing with Five Nights at Freddy's, and then he immediately comes back with something new. The fans have grown to know when he says it's done, there's something coming. There's always going to be something coming. So there's always this expectation that something else is going to be coming out, and people are always, ironically, interested to see what else is coming out. Because, like I said, the heyday is gone, but the people to see this movie are still there.
Yeah, it's not like the Slenderman movies where it's like, because that's kind of faded away.
Yeah, like I said in the episode where we talked about the Slenderman movie, a lot of those creepypastas with recognizable monsters and faces, that heyday has definitely passed. Right. Because a lot of modern creepypastas that I've seen a lot of narrators reading weren't exactly what was popular back in that time.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, on to our last bit of news, something not related to horror. For Hollywood, it seems they're calling it a summer miracle, not a single huge bomb all season. So,
does that include? Oh, dang it! Does that include? Never mind. No, that wasn't in the summer season. Never mind. Because I was going to point out Solo on Memorial Day.
Oh yeah. Well, it could be. Well, I mean, it's always debatable when the summer movie season starts, but I don't know if you. I mean, what do they? I mean, what does Hollywood classify as a huge bomb? Like Ben-Hur, and it came out in, what was that, 2016, 2017?
I forgot that even existed until now.
Everybody did. So nobody saw it. So it made it had like $100 some million, and it made $60 million. How embarrassing!
Jeez.
But anyway,
the article in here goes into compare the previous summers regarding all the box office bombs in the past summer seasons, and it also goes into the effects of the Movie Pass, the subscription service, which has been tanking here recently. But for the most part, the thesis of this article is just saying that, like we said in the title, apparently there has not been a single bomb all this season.
Interesting.
And it actually it brings up a lot, and it was actually kicked off. Yeah, the kickoff to the summer was just ahead of the release of Avengers: Infinity War.
So I guess Solo is part of that because Avengers came out before.
Yeah, that makes me because that has been considered a bomb.
Yeah, but you said the article emphasizes a huge bomb.
Yeah, you're right. But
so I guess that because Solo kind of fell under the radar for a lot of people. So I don't. It's interesting. So
I can look this up and do a podcast correction later. All right. That's all we got for news.
Yeah.
Are you ready to move on to what we've seen?
Yeah. So movies we've seen. So Dylan, what movies did you see this week?
I saw The Meg with Jason Statham. It's good to see him. It's good to see him in a movie again.
How good is it? Any good?
It was actually pretty good. I mean, like I told you on Skype, it didn't try to be Jaws, but you can't help but see the parallels to Jaws given the subject matter.
Right.
But it was very fun to watch. Yeah. It wasn't one of those movies where you could turn your brain off. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel like that. It felt like a really enjoyable and even at times suspenseful movie.
Right.
And like I was telling you, the CGI in this movie, it does look fake in some places because that's the uncanny valley that CGI has to fight against. But I made the comparisons to the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where the environment the CGI was in helped hide where it lacked. Because for those who remember Pirates of the Caribbean, in the first shot of the skeleton of the undead army walking under the ship, it was in a very dark environment, a very watery environment, and all those scenes were set at night, and it kind of helps it helps hide where the CGI and the live action footage just doesn't mesh.
Yeah, that's kind of a trick they used in season 2 finale of Game of Thrones. I won't go into too much detail, but they have ships or boats, ships exploding, and everything. So and they set it at night on purpose to hide the fact that it was a CG boat exploding. So I mean they had a real actual huge scale ship that they used for filming, but still. But yeah, that's interesting. I've been kind of interested in to seeing the Meg. I'm debating on going and seeing it. I don't know. So I know they've been trying to do like I've heard like a movie about the Megalodon for years. They've been trying to do a movie. So many different people tied to it have been trying to do one for years. So it's interesting just now that it got to it. Impressive that it didn't happen in the 90s. Chris Stuckman brought up a good point. If this movie came out in the 90s, or this movie was made in the 90s, like it feels like it. That's what he said. And he said if it was made in the 90s, or if it came out in the 90s, it would have starred Nicolas Cage.
Yes. Now I want to see the version of the Meg with Nicolas Cage now. The only issue that I had with this movie was some of the heartfelt moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not talking. I won't go into spoilers, obviously, but there were some heartfelt moments where the characters are sharing a moment.
Right.
But I don't think we had proper context because it's one of those scenes where they try to have a character's dialogue make up for something that we didn't see. Mm-hmm. One of those kind of exchanges, like,
right.
I was so hard on you. I'm sorry, I was so hard on you. Like one of those scenes where you don't see something to warrant that kind of dialogue. The dialogue is there to fill in the gap that we didn't see. Though that scene was relative, and it's only a small issue because that scene was very short.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise, I'd give it a thumbs up. Go see it.
Okay, cool. I'll consider seeing that this week. So and you rewatched another movie, right?
Yes, we're going to be introducing the fact that we can rewatch some classics that we haven't watched in a few years. I watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I haven't seen that in a long time. How was it? How was it going back and revisiting it?
It was like it was kind of like it was refreshing,
Mm-hmm.
I think Who Framed Roger Rabbit, how I would describe that movie is like a fine wine that gets refreshing after a large gap of not seeing it. Because it still holds up surprisingly well. I mean, Bob Hoskins. There's nothing that I can say that can articulate that this movie is one of the best movies in cinema history.
Yeah.
The talent of Bob Hoskins, Christopher Lloyd. That man is so... I almost forgot how good and scary he was in this movie.
Yeah.
The talent of the director, Rob Zemeckis, and the work that all the animators, and Steven Spielberg being the middleman between all these companies.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have happened if he didn't have that string of hits, because that's the reason that Who Framed Roger Rabbit got made. Because of Back to the
Future got made.
Yeah, because he brought on Rob Zemeckis to direct.
Yeah.
And he was the middleman between all these companies. Without him, a lot of these companies wouldn't have given their characters.
Yeah. I think Zemeckis is probably one of the best directors working today. So yeah, some of his films have been like the Polar Express.
I've got a soft spot for that movie.
I haven't seen it in a long time. But although I'm sort of glad he's not making those movies anymore. The motion capture films. I know he didn't make all of them, but that was his production company.
Yep.
So
he almost did Yellow Submarine. You never heard?
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. So, but yeah, and but he did the Wire. That was the guy tightrope walking across the World Trade Center. And that was pretty good. And then he's got Warwind, so coming out, which I really want to see. So, but yeah, I think he's one of the best directors of that from his time working today. So
you could tell, even if his movie is a miss, he's got a lot of passion behind what he does.
Yeah. I mean, look at how many hits he's got: Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, could you call Castaway?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it's one of the movies that people think of when they think Tom Hanks.
Yeah. So Castaway. There's others. I know a lot of people really like The Polar Express.
I like it because it managed to extend
Yeah.
a really short children's book without losing the heart.
Yeah.
I'll say there were some questionable decisions, but the heart of the story was still
Yeah.
kept in place.
So, but yeah, I think he's from a guy his time, because he kind of emerged after like the Spielberg, Lucas, Scorsese, Coppola Renaissance.
Mhm.
After those guys kind of opened the doors, Zemeckis came out, and James Cameron, and some other people too.
We need to do a director's spotlight on Rob Zemeckis because his directorial story is one about where he went to director jail for a while for one movie until he did Romancing the Throne because Romancing the Stone. I'm sorry.
You're good.
But yeah, the first movie that he did bombed terribly, and he had written it.
First couple movies, yeah.
Yep. And he wanted to direct something that he didn't write, so that he could that he could boost up his credentials because no one wanted to hire him.
No, so nobody wanted to make Back to the Future. So but once Romancing the Stone came out, they were just like, oh, so now Back to the Future might be a good movie. So, but we'll get to that in another video.
Definitely. But Who Framed Roger Rabbit? If you have not seen this movie, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Go see it.
I'm gonna. Is there a Blu-ray of it?
There should be.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna
if there's not, get on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick one up because I haven't seen it in a long time. But yeah, so movies. I guess if nothing else to say, movies I've seen. This first one I saw, I didn't see by choice. I saw The Secret Life of Pets. I'm not proud to say that. I didn't see, like I said, I didn't see it by choice. I was at my girlfriend's house, and her aunt, or like she had like a 1-year-old nephew, and they just put it on to keep him quiet, so it didn't work. But the movie was I don't really have much to say. It's like and keep in mind I kind of skipped through like 20 minutes of it. It's not that long a movie, I don't think.
I don't remember it being that long when I saw it.
Yeah, you saw it when you worked at the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, every Wednesday, free summer movie. That was one. Secret Life was one.
Yeah, but anyway, so I I skipped like 20 minutes of it because I was kind of helping my girlfriend cook. It was at a cookout. And I saw it and I was like, it was alright. There's nothing special. Nothing really anything offensive about it. I was surprised that it was made by Universal because I saw the Universal logo pop up, but then I realized it was made by Illumination.
Illumination!
The same people who made Minions, Despicable Me, and they also do the Grinch the Dr. Seuss animated films, which the Grinch is coming out in November.
Yep.
Which I'm like, hoping it's just harmless. But anyway,
it's looking to be just harmless.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's Secret Life of Pets. It's all right. There's nothing. It didn't seem like there was any personality to it. Like it got a vibe like it was trying to be like Toy Story in the sense like Buzz Lightyear. Actually, no, it's a lot trying to be like Toy Story.
Yeah. Now that you say that.
Because it has like the two main characters, who don't like each other, but then they have to learn to work together, and then they become friends.
Yeah.
From what I saw, it didn't seem like there was much development.
They didn't have a lot of the dry, memorable humor.
Yeah.
That Toy Story.
Yeah, it was the humor was very on the nose and to be expected. Yeah, but it's harmless. There's. If you want to show your kids to it, if you want to show it to your kids, they're not really going to get any dumber or... Again, there's nothing really wrong with it, but it's not great. So, okay, but on a better note...
we go to something glorious.
Yeah, I finally got my ass to the theater. Had to go all the way to AMC because that's the only theater that's still playing it around here. Incredibles 2. Loved it. Oh, I feel so bad that I waited so long to see it. Because
Where have you been?
I don't know. Well, I think when it came out, I was on vacation.
Yes,
So,
you were.
So I couldn't see it right when it came out, and then when I came back, I had to catch up on everything. But anyway, Incredibles 2. I might be on the page with Doug Walker in that it's better than the first one. So
I would say that.
yeah. I'm
on the fence about saying it's as good as the first one and better. Because I feel like there were things that the first one did better than the second one, and there are things that the second one did a lot better than the first one. But it still feels like a proper sequel. It feels like a continuation of these characters and their story.
Yeah, and I'm relieved to see. It was definitely worth the. What are we at? 14 years.
Yep, definitely.
14-year wait for that.
Did you get the prologue behind the scenes thing with all the voice actors?
Yeah, I did. I did see that. Did you see the short?
The short? Yes, I did.
Oh my god. I was like, I'm with Doug and Rob. I'm just like, oh my god, they've lost it. They've cracked it. Finally happened. But I'll be honest. I was like, when it was over, I was like tearing up. I'm like, I'm not crying.
You're crying.
Yeah, well, I almost did. So I was just like, oh my god. But
Pixar, they are masters of this.
Yeah. So, which is kind of a double-edged sword, because I'm like, wait, how the heck am I gonna watch this movie now? Because there's no real like heart, string pullers in Incredibles 2, which is fine, but it's like, damn it, Pixar, how do you do that? Anyway,
how do you do that?
Yeah. So Incredibles 2. What did you think of the villain?
The villain.
Without going into spoilers.
I felt like I think it was interesting. The villain was interesting, even though I think I saw the twist kind of coming.
Mm-hmm.
But the reasons behind why they did what they did it's gray. It's very gray.
Yeah.
The villain was very gray.
Yeah. I think this one's a little bit better than Syndrome. Because Syndrome, I didn't think he really had a lot of development. I feel like you could have given him like a little bit more complexity. Or at least make him a little bit more entertaining to watch. I mean, I love the first Incredibles, but
to me, Syndrome was one of the best entertaining parts of the first movie, and I love the first movie.
Oh yeah, but I don't know. It's personal preference, whatever.
Definitely.
But yeah, Incredibles 2, it was great. I loved it. So, I'm really ashamed I didn't see it sooner. So,
well, you saw it now, and you've made up.
Yep. Okay, so if there's nothing else to say, Dylan,
let's get right into discussion.
So our discussion. Let me stop the clock. 12 minutes, pretty good.
Yep.
All right, so starting clock now. Okay, so our discussion for today is the problems with film criticism of the modern era.
Wow, we're getting really meta. We're gonna criticize film criticism.
And just to be clear, this is our own opinions. You don't have to agree with us. This is what we're here for. We're here for discussion. We're all for taking different opinions and taking criticism from you guys. So if you guys think we're wrong, let us know. But be constructive.
Yeah.
Explain it well. Don't just say we're wrong and we're idiots. So, because that's not criticism. That's just being an ass. That's just being a troll.
Tell us the why we're wrong.
Yeah,
if you believe we're wrong, tell us the why.
We may not agree, but we'll see your point. So we'll appreciate your constructiveness. So, okay.
Film criticism today.
So, Dylan, you brought up something before we started recording. Before I kind of go into it, because I don't know how kind of long-winded. Because we're going to keep this to 20 minutes, but what is your problem with film criticism today?
I feel like, especially with films like The Last Jedi, and this is a prime example of what I'm going to say, there doesn't seem to be, and I don't even think this is just limited to film. I think it's just any kind of media that you criticize.
Right.
There doesn't appear to be any middle ground. There's no aisle between the two parties. Like, with The Last Jedi, it was either you were all for it or you weren't all for it for legitimate reasons. And there were the lovers and there were the haters. There was no middle ground where people had issues with the film. There was no gray. There seems to be no gray area.
Which is where we're kind of at with that. Well, not to get too off topic, but we just kind of think it's okay, or at least I do. I see a lot more problems with it now. But yeah, that is a thing, that there isn't much middle ground. Like Ghostbusters 2016, which we'll get to that movie in a couple months.
Yeah.
So we'll get to all the Ghostbusters films in a couple months, but
we got a lot planned for you in October.
Yeah. Anyway, so that didn't seem like, because like then like with Ghostbusters you had like, because it was all female. If you didn't want to see it, you were misogynist, and we're not going to go into that. But and then if you didn't, and if you did want to see it, you betrayed the original for what it was.
I think in some parts this is because I don't know. This is just what I see when I see stuff like this. I think we all got. I think and I'm guilty of this too. I think we kind of get all caught up in things,
Mm-hmm.
Like, we get easily swept up into the crowd and which direction they're going or they're not going.
The nostalgia.
Mm-hmm. But I think that I would say that is the biggest issue we get. There seems to be no middle ground, and both sides tend to get swept up into their own thinking. Like, nothing else can be considered, and the people in the middle who do consider both sides kind of left in the dust, or they get lopped into one category.
Yeah,
that they aren't a part of,
or they're ridiculed and everything.
Exactly, like someone trying to have a proper discussion, and they get called everything in the book.
Yeah, it is, because film is an art.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not everyone's gonna have the same opinion on it. So,
mm-hmm.
I don't know, the Mona Lisa might be considered sacred, or, sacred, that's kind of a wrong term, but they might consider it a masterpiece by some might relish in it, whereas others might be like, it's a classic painting, it's okay, whatever. So it's like that, you know what I mean?
I can see what you mean, but this really kind of I think also another issue that we're facing with, especially this modern variant of film criticism, is that there's a big eye on everybody. There's a big eye on reviewers,
right,
to make sure what they're saying is truly what they're saying, is truly what their original thought.
Right.
Because I remember when I was watching a lot of things on The Last Jedi, and there were a lot of accusations thrown around and a lot of pointing out of how some reviewers had connections to the Lucasfilm machine through external sources.
Right.
Like, there was one reviewer whose wife apparently worked for Hasbro, and they put out the toys.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And the whole commotion about a reviewer not disclosing that they're being sponsored for a review, and this can extend to other mediums as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's kind of, if I were to describe it, it's a kerfuffle right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Because nowadays all it takes is a discovery that you have some connection to what you're reviewing, or you say something about a film that goes against the general consensus and everybody looks at you weird.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of ties into my problem with film criticism is
and I say that last comment with all irony, because I looked at the camera when you said I looked like this when you said about your thing about Syndrome, but that was all in good fun.
Right. I get you. I didn't even see it because we can't.
Yeah, we
Hopefully,
can't see
when we get an actual round table, we can actually have face-to-face communication just with the microphones in front of us. But anyway, kind of what ties into my problem with film criticism is the level of arrogance to it. Because a lot of critics, even though I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it seems like they think, because of their prowess on YouTube or the internet in general, that their opinion is that what they say is true. That makes this movie officially bad or good. You know what I mean? Because
I definitely have seen some of that.
Yeah. There is Last Jedi. That's a big thing. I've heard. Dylan, are you aware of Confused Matthew?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, he doesn't really do reviews anymore. He does mostly reviews on Facebook, but he's notorious for not liking films that are considered as classics, like The Lion King, or Back to the Future 2, and there's another one. He's reviewed the Star Wars prequels, which we'll also get into that. So I haven't seen this guy's stuff in a while. But anyway, the point is, he's notorious for not liking films that everybody else regards as classics. So, but anyway, so The Last Jedi comes and he gives it like a perfect score of 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is fascinating, and I've despite my feelings on it, I've read all kinds of reviews on it. I've seen, the hour-long reviews. I've seen, the reviews that everybody put out. So it is interesting, but there is that sort of stigma to these people, to some of these people that I won't. Do we want to name names? Or,
well, that's your call, man. Because I do get what you're saying. I feel like and I think a lot of reviewers don't mean for this. That kind of ties into well-meaning critics who don't intend for their words to be taken as word of God. It can go both ways. Sometimes the critic can believe wholly in his word as objective fact and the word of God. But but there's the other issue, the critic that has the fan base that treats it as the word of God.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We're not saying that it's bad to dislike a movie or talk about why you don't like a movie.
By no means.
We talk about not liking movies all the time. And there's nothing wrong with critiquing it, saying why you don't like it, but to say that it's officially bad, like my review or this review is just officially bad. It makes this film officially a bad movie that some others might consider, their favorite film. Like, I'll say the Twilight movies. I really don't like those movies. I haven't seen them. I'm not going to see them.
I've only seen the first one.
Okay. But there's a fan base out there, and they love those films and the books. 50 Shades of Grey. That's another example. As much as I don't like those movies, I can watch the first 50 Shades of Grey on mute because it looks pretty, at least. So, I'm being serious. It looks really good. So, cinematography wise, but it's like those films. Regardless of what I think, I'm not saying that what I think of them is official. If you like those movies, fine. I'll even say it. The Transformers movies, as much as I hate what those films stand for, as much as I hate those movies, if you like them, great. What I say is not official. So,
you can take what Tom says with a grain of salt if you want. We're not stopping.
This is films. Films are subjective.
Yeah, they always will be.
Yeah, well, there are some films that pretty much everybody regards as garbage, like The Last Airbender,
and that creates a really kind of murky environment as well, because we put. I think also the reason that film criticism has become the kerfuffle that it has, or just any kind of criticism, is because we put certain movies on pedestals. And I've got a literal pedestal here in the studio. I've got Back to the Future's poster framed on my wall because I love that movie. That movie is amazing.
So do I.
A testament to cinema history.
But I've even heard people who say they hate that movie. Not critics, but just like normal everyday people.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll never understand that, but it's like, all right.
But yeah, but that I will admit I put movies on pedestals.
Yeah,
but I think that creates a bit of a murky environment, because anyone who decries something that's been put on a pedestal is called a contrarian, even if they have legitimate reasons not to like the movie.
Yeah, going back to Confused Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was notorious for that, but yeah, it's one of the reasons, like, because, like, again, the arrogance to them. It's like they know exactly what the studio should have done, and sometimes, you know, maybe it doesn't, regardless of what you agree with, like when they do these like rewrites of the Star Wars prequels. You know, there's tons of films like, or videos out there, you know, how to remake those. Which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with those, but it's like...
Because we've encouraged that. We encourage, when we were talking about where do ideas come from.
Yeah.
An idea can come from you looking at a movie that you think did something wrong and writing it how you would do it.
Yeah, but the thing is, the problem is like, you know, they think this is what it should have been. This is what they should have done, when they don't realize, like, how hard it is to make a movie. You know, even a bad movie is extremely difficult to make. There's, you know, so many people involved, so much effort.
For example,
blood,
The
sweat,
Room.
Yeah,
it was a hell to get through for the cast.
Yeah,
not just for the on-set reasons of no AC and some of the members passing out. It was just difficult to film.
Yeah. You can watch The Disaster Artist, a great movie,
or read the book.
Yeah, or do both.
Still need to get that on DVD. But back to the point.
Yeah, but yeah, it's one of the reasons, like CinemaSins. I don't watch them anymore because I don't think there's been some stuff coming out, some articles and videos written about them, that it's actually that stuff like CinemaSins is bad for film criticism.
I've seen that video.
Yeah.
I have seen that video you're talking about.
It is interesting, and like I admit I haven't watched them in quite a long time, and recently I kind of unsubscribed for them. And again, even though they say it's like for comedy, you know, because they nitpick it, you know, that's their thing.
They described it as that angry nitpicker.
Yeah,
they described themselves as that in one interview. I do remember that.
Yeah, but it's like, is it though? Like, because
that video you were talking about, the main point he was pushing across is that essentially CinemaSins tried to have its cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, for those who are listening, I do enjoy CinemaSins. I'm sorry, I'm saying it how a friend.
CinemaSins.
I'm saying it how a friend of mine says it. CinemaSins. I enjoy their stuff from time to time, and like Tom, I haven't watched them in a while because my attention has been pulled in other directions.
Yeah.
But even that, I do see what other people are saying when they talk about CinemaSins having their cake and eating it too, saying that they're just that angry nitpicker that nobody wants to talk to, but also at the time that they're genuine film criticism.
Yeah, and I think,
and some of their sins are.
Yeah,
I can see where they're coming from on both angles, but it is the matter of having your cake and eating it too.
Yeah, and you kind of just have to pick one and don't do the other, unless you're like, you know how to balance it.
Or you know how to do satire really well.
Yeah. Or if it's like, or like the Nostalgia Critic, you know, they kind of, even though they're not, you know, perfect, they can sometimes have that level of arrogance. Particularly when, you know, Doug is talking about the Dr. Seuss movies, you know, which, I mean, yeah, Cat in the Hat I think is a piece of shit, you know.
I ironically enjoy that movie because of how
I actually saw that movie in theaters, but I don't remember it at all. and until that review came out, I was like, oh my god, I remember that. I should see that movie. So anyway, we'll get to that in another episode.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, or the Grinch. But before I say that, Cat in the Hat. I don't think anybody remembers that movie. I don't think anybody saw it, or remembers seeing it like I do.
But a lot of people remember the Grinch because,
yeah,
like I remember going seeing that in the theaters.
Yeah,
and every Christmas after that, they'd show it on ABC's 25 Days of Christmas.
Yeah.
It's become a Christmas staple.
Yeah, and
of Christmas programming, despite the critics.
Yeah, and everybody, and Doug is very clear he hates that movie, which that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's like it seems like he's I love the nostalgia critic and Doug Walker, despite what's come out over the years, but it seems like with that in particular, it's like there's this high level of arrogance, like no, this movie's officially bad. Anybody like he asked like, how can anybody like this? Like, I'm like, come on, man, you like Spider-Man 3, so.
And that kind of opens up the Pandora's box of comedic reviewers.
Yeah.
It kind of opens when you get into that whole mentality of having your cake and eating it too, or being a comedian as well as the actual critic. That opens kind of a Pandora's box when you look at most comedic reviewers.
Yeah,
and like you said, some people can balance it out really well.
Yeah, and I've seen some videos about not a lot of videos, but it's like saying like what people like Nostalgia Critic or other comedic reviewers have done, the negative impact they've had on criticism. Because there are some like how they're not really. They think it's bad because they're not analyzing the film. They're not analyzing why it works and why it doesn't. Which, I mean, okay, that's fine, but like that's not really what they're trying to do. They're just trying to make it funny. They're trying to make fun of it. And there's this one guy in particular, Marcelo Zunga. I think
name sounds familiar.
He posts like a bunch of Star Wars clips. But he's also posted some reviews, like some, analyzing the original Star Wars trilogy, and they're really in depth. I'll show those to you later.
Gotcha.
They're really in depth. He goes really into depth, like as to how why those films work and everything. But yeah, it is interesting, and I guess to kind of close out here because we are at our near time, but. Criticism. There's nothing wrong with film criticism. Let's just get that out there.
There's nothing wrong with it.
If you want to talk about why you don't like a movie, perfectly fine, no problem with that. But it's like, don't remember, it's your opinion, it's your critique. Don't say why you do or don't. Don't say why you're right and everybody else is wrong. So that's just it.
Always tell the why after you say something stinks.
Don't insult the audience. That's what I should say.
Wow, I got a feeling that's going to put us in the hot water or something.
Well, we'll see. All right. So, if there's nothing else to say, Dylan.
I don't have anything else. I mean, I think I'm the least qualified person to say anything on this topic.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. That's kind of why I wish we had a third Ryan who was here. So.
Or we actually had a film critic in here.
Yeah.
Like someone, the guy to actually bounce this off of.
Maybe. So maybe we'll save that for another episode when we start doing guest stars.
Yeah. Any film critics who would like to appear?
Yeah.
Give us a ring.
Yeah, definitely.
We'd like to hear your piece.
Yeah. And so, but one more thing I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
This idea for this discussion came up because I know Ryan Conley talked about this too on Film Riot. Somebody asked him, like what his problem with film criticism is today. So, yeah, that is interesting. So, he is on our guest list. So,
what did he say?
Basically what I said. Like, there's the arrogance to it. So, I'll show you that video in a bit. So
we'll put that in the description for you.
yeah, we'll do that. So yeah, if there's nothing else, let's move on to our next topic, filmmaking, which is getting out of your comfort zone, or comfort zone when and when not to leave it.
Now, in college, I was told by a professor that if you're in your comfort zone, you're not learning anything. In order to learn something, you have to get out of your comfort zone. That's logical. That is true. Mm-hmm. If we're only doing the same thing over and over again, the things that we know, we can learn maybe a little bit, but the largest learning we do is getting out of our comfort zone. It's like learning to live on our own. That's how we learn, by leaving our parents' house and being out of our comfort zone.
All right.
Now, for film, I think, well, at least to me, that can go either or. You can be in your comfort zone and still do something fantastic, and also be out of it and do something fantastic. But going out of your comfort zone is a bit of a risk. Now, I've actually got two prime examples sitting here. For those who can see this in the video, you can see what I've got here. I've got AC/DC's Razor Edge. There's nothing particular about that album that the reason I chose it. I just chose AC/DC because they're a really good example of what I'm about to talk about. AC/DC, for anyone who's a fan of AC/DC, we all know, like anyone who's not a fan of AC/DC or is, we basically know from listening to the music that they have not changed their sound drastically in the decades that they've been making music.
Right.
And like James Rolfe said, that they haven't changed their sound in over these years, that you know exactly what you're getting when you buy an AC/DC's album. And that's an example of being in your comfort zone. But AC/DC still sells, so
yeah.
I always like to make the argument that AC/DC experimented in their sound, because their songs aren't the same. The sound is the same, but the songs aren't the same.
Right.
I feel like they've tried everything in their sound at this point.
Yeah. So there is that gray area.
Yeah.
Like we said.
And that brings us to another example, like Wes Craven here. Now, for those who know Wes Craven, he was the director behind Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream. He's known as the master of horror. Fun fact, he didn't want to do horror, actually. He wanted to make other kinds of movies, but due to the success of Nightmare, he was branded the king of horror.
Has he done any other non-horror movies?
Yes, he has. He wanted to do romance comedies.
So what else? Do you have any examples?
I would have to pull those up and do those in a podcast correction, because I don't know those right off the bat, and that's
you can
key.
Continue talking about that.
That is the key to what I'm talking about. When he went out of his comfort zone, when he went out of what he was comfortable, what people knew him for, what he was branded as the master as, do we remember it?
Right.
Because we don't know it right off the bat. What do we know? What do we think of when we think Wes Craven? We think Freddy Krueger. We think Ghostface. We think horror movies.
Right.
And I feel like there is always, like, going out of your comfort zone, there is always a risk. But I believe, at least in filmmaking and music from time to time, and with music, like since I pointed out AC/DC, there's a time and place to do it.
Right.
Like Wes Craven going out of his comfort zone of horror to learn how to do a romance movie, he learns how to do it. But we don't remember it because that also has to do with the fact that we branded him as the master of horror. We're always expecting horror from him. And if you want to talk about a man who went out of his comfort zone every other day, let's talk about Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we all know him for The Godfather, but he did things outside of what he was celebrated for. Jag, Peggy Sue Got Married.
The Outsiders.
Yep, definitely. And I'm not going to say anything against going outside your comfort zone. If you feel like you want to learn something new, especially in filmmaking, if your forte is making horror films, make horror films, because if you stay in your comfort zone, you know exactly what you're going to do, and you'll innovate from it within, like AC/DC did with their music, at least what I would argue. But if you want to try something new and learn, if you're able to do something else, go out of your comfort zone. If you're be Wes Craven for a
Yeah.
day.
Can we say that Stanley Kubrick's comfort zone was not being in his comfort zone or not having a comfort zone?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like-
his movies were all over the place.
Yeah, or
Like-
and then even like going as far as like torturing the actors that was on set. We'll get to that. in
Yeah,
another
we'll
episode,
definitely get
but-
to that. But there's a time and place to be in your comfort zone and to be out of it. Because
Right.
if you're in your comfort zone, especially with filmmaking or just creating something in general, it's the trade-off of knowing exactly what you got to do and fine-tuning your craft. And it's between that and taking a risk in something that you don't know a whole lot.
Right.
You don't know a whole lot about, but you're going to learn a lot.
Yeah, and I guess to apply it to what we've been doing over our years as filmmakers, I guess I'll just give an example. Like this next short film, Awaken. It's kind of hard to classify. You could call it like a psychological thriller, I guess. Or it's a very Twilight Zone-esque episode, which I haven't seen a ton of Twilight. I haven't seen as much as I should, but I've seen a decent amount of Twilight Zone episodes. Great show, by the way. For those who haven't seen it,
One of the best.
Yep, definitely. You know, it's definitely not something I've done before. Maybe it's also kind of a drama. The closest like dramatic short film I did was Passion Never Stops. I talked about it in the first episode. I wrote a sort of a more dramatic sequel to it, or more of a follow up because it can stand on its own. Without going too off topic, so that was definitely something that was not in my comfort zone. Because for about 3 or 4 years I did, more like 3 years I did Dark Force. That was something I wanted to do. We started in we started like brainstorming ideas at the end of my sophomore year, with Riley Gilbert and Ryan, and the next year I kind of took it a little bit to the next level. My junior year, I started putting it into full fruition, and I wrote like a little story around it, and then what came at the end of that semester was episode 4, and then after that came episode 3, and episode 1 was going to be next, or actually I wrote episode 5, the first draft of it, while I was working on the pre-production for episode 3. So, but I'll go more into detail that in another episode. For those who want to find out why Dark Force isn't a thing anymore.
But you could definitely say doing that, you learned a lot.
Oh yeah, I learned a heck of a lot. I learned that I have a big imagination, but I do not know for the life of me how to control it, how to limit it. At least when it comes to that kind of movie. Because with Awaken, it's more scaled down than Dark Force, obviously. But with Dark Force, as because with the drama with episode 1, which again I'll go into in another episode, was I constantly had to keep changing the script because of things would happen. Actors would come and go for various reasons, and it's so every time I would have keep rewriting the script, it would just get bigger and bigger, and but then I realized I was like, there's no way I can do this. So, but yeah, that's one of the things you do. You learn about this stuff. You learn about this stuff. You do other things. I definitely want to go a bit more out of my comfort zone, especially when it comes to freelancing, because I'm gonna start reaching out to some people. But in terms of narrative films, I'd like to do a horror movie, but like an old school style horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really have a lot of ideas for one, or actually I've had one for a little while, although it's kind of like inspired by a James Rolfe film, which I'll talk to you, Dylan, about that when we finish here.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's definitely something I might do. Or actually, years ago, I wrote a zombie movie. So, which back then I was not a huge fan of zombies, but I wanted to do a zombie movie. Nowadays, it's just like I don't give two shits about zombies anymore. So, sorry.
It's all good.
All right.
I haven't played a zombie game in a while.
Yeah, but so
Or
yeah, that's
seen
definitely
one in a
something
while.
that we're working ahead on doing. But Dylan, you got any real life examples?
Real life examples of going out of my comfort zone was working with a big cast on Paper Lake. You remember that?
Oh
Tom?
yeah.
It was just actually getting out and being in the director's chair.
Yeah.
I learned a lot because that shoot didn't go anywhere in the end, but I did learn a lot from
Oh
it.
yeah.
And I think
he's having flashbacks.
Yes, I am. I didn't handle that situation the best, but I'm glad that I did learn from it, and I hope to put what I learned from that together. But again, I did not handle that I did not handle that the best way.
We didn't. Some could say we didn't have the best people, but
and there should have been a lot more planning on my front. I don't think I did the right amount of planning for that film, but I could talk about that film in length.
Yeah, we'll probably do like a whole. Each of us will probably do like a whole corner of projects that didn't pan out on the Round Table YouTube channel. So,
but the big thing we want to hit today is I'm not going against the idea that getting out of your comfort zone will help you learn. It'll help you learn a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't have that safety net. You have a lot to learn when taking a risk.
Yeah.
And whether you succeed or fail, you always learn something. You're going to learn a lot more being outside of your comfort zone. But you can't deny the fact that you can't deny what you are going to learn in your comfort zone when you innovate from what you know. Because you can always push what you know.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say you can't deny the fact because I don't know that for a fact. Everybody's different.
Right.
But I do believe that if you're in your comfort zone, you can innovate from in that zone.
Yeah.
You'll learn, but you won't learn as much as taking a risk and going outside is the big picture guys want to take from this.
And that's kind of thing with Awaken, because I just want to direct that film and edit it. That's all I want to do is direct it. You know, I don't want to touch the camera, assuming Ryan can still DP it. But yeah, I just want to direct that. You know, because before I've just been acting and directing, and doing the camera work, which is not the best way to work. You know, if you want consistent looks to it, shots maybe out of focus or whatever. So this next film, I really just Awaken. I just want to direct it. See if I can, if I have potential as a director. So and one day I'd like to direct something that I didn't write. So see if I can do that. Like see if I can formulate a vision for it.
Okay. I would like to try that one day too.
Definitely.
We can all be Rob Zemeckis. Call back.
Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, it's definitely good food for thought. Getting out of your comfort zone, which is something I don't think either of us are particularly the best at. I mean, maybe I'm just speaking for me, but I don't know about you, Dylan.
I think we're about the same on that.
Yeah. Because we're both pretty introverted people. I was the quiet kid, so first time really FCTV was a big shift for me.
Definitely.
I don't know if I would call that going out of my comfort zone. I mean, because that's when I started to become a leader and started being talkative, in that class. Especially in the later years, I would get really pissed off, but different video.
Yes.
And then there was another, and then a senior year I did choir. I'd never done that before. So, and then that was, because kind of how things were going at FCTV, I was there were other, that was kind of like a trend, people were kind of falling into the choir area. So I was just and then I kind of peaked. I was because I would do like the cameraman stuff for the concerts and everything. Then I'm just like, okay, let's see how this goes. And I kind of followed, and then Ryan got more involved, and then I sort of followed him in their senior year. So
all right.
And then that's how I got into the advanced choir, Signature Sound, which was quite an experience. There was good and bad times, but it was a lot of hard work. But I got to go to New York City, and that's something I never would have been able to do. I didn't think, because I was 19 at the time, I didn't think I'd ever be able to go to New York City when I was that young. So it's something I'll never forget. And got to perform on Carnegie Hall, on stage. So all of us. So that's we'll never. You only get to experience that once. So, but we'll hopefully get. But I never would have been able to do that kind of stuff without, going out of my comfort zone. So, and I'm glad I did it. So,
there's a time and place.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
would say.
Yeah. So yeah, Dylan, if you have anything else to say.
I think I've said my piece.
Yeah, I think.
Take it what you will, people.
Yeah, definitely. Get a comfort zone, experiment, films or real life. So yeah. So all right, so we're at about 16 minutes. So let's go ahead and let's move on to our final segment. The content that is coming-ish soonish.
We're still working out all the kinks.
Yeah, we're working out all the stuff with the podcast on how to, get all the other tracks unhidden. So, by the way, if you want to, for those listening on iTunes and SoundCloud, if you want to see our new tracks or want to see our older tracks, just go on the YouTube channel, The Roundtable. It's always linked in the SoundCloud in the descriptions.
For the time being,
yeah,
until we get this sorted out.
Yeah, so we're gonna delete. Well, we'll delete some of the from the new episodes once we get that worked out, and then we're gonna upload the new ones.
Mm-hmm.
And re-upload the new ones. So once we get that worked out. Actually, I've got for new content. I'll talk more in detail about this with you, Dylan, after we sign off here. But I'm actually going to do some like filmmaker organization tips. So I ordered some like broom handle holders, and I'm going to use those to hang like tripods and light stands on. So that'll be a video hopefully coming this week. I say next week because because we film these on Fridays.
Yeah.
This week after Monday. So hopefully that'll be coming. And I'd like to do might do some Blu-ray hunts this week. Not gonna promise anything, but we'll see. I'm gonna do my best. I've got a little bit of free time this week. I'm gonna set some time aside to pre-record videos for both my channel and this channel. So yeah, that should be fun. So Dylan, what you got coming?
I've got a new episode of According to Von Isner. I did some filming this week.
Nice.
I've still got to film the outside scenes because of this one particular movie. This is going to be my first movie review for the show. And it does require, for scenic purposes, for me to be outside on a really good day. And I've got to go find myself some plushies.
Yep. Gotcha.
You'll all understand why when the video comes out. And
Cool.
Tom will understand why while I'm making it.
Right. So, yeah. Ryan, I know he's got he's got a Blu-ray hunt coming soon. I don't think he's released it yet. Last time I checked the YouTube channel, actually I have it pulled up.
I could do looking for Who Framed Roger Rabbit on DVD.
Oh yeah,
I could do a little hunt for that.
I might do that too. So yeah, he hasn't posted his Blu-ray hunt, but yeah, well, there's new stuff coming this week, in the next couple of weeks. So we're looking forward to that. So just bear with us. We're
adults. We're trying to adult.
Yeah, we're not doing very well. Good job at it. But
who does a really good job at it?
True. But that's just the thing we're trying to get. This is the thing with the new startup and everything. We're just trying to get it off the ground and find a routine with the round table. So
call it growing pains.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and guys, Dylan, if you have anything else to say.
Well, I do have something to say, Tom. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us for the Filmmakers Round Table. once again, as always, and forevermore until we have a radical shift in programming, be sure to leave your discussion about what we talked about in this episode, because we really do want to hear you guys' take on film criticism and your comfort zone. When is a good time to get out of it? Or you should always be out of your comfort zone. We want to hear what you have to say. Mm-hmm. As for movies or classics, since we just opened that up with movies we've seen, if there's a classic you want us to look back on and see if it still holds up, put that in the comments. If you want us to check out something that's coming out here or something that's not going to be out for a while, we'll keep it on our radar. As always, this podcast comes out every Monday here on SoundCloud, or if you're watching the video version, every Monday on YouTube. Links to our Facebook page will be in the description, as well as our individual Twitters and YouTube pages, if you would like to keep updated with our content. Folks, thanks for joining us for this episode. We hope you all have a great day. I'm going to go get that cricket now.
Later.
Thanks for watching this week's episode, guys. Make sure to follow us on SoundCloud and iTunes, as well as our Facebook and Twitter pages. Don't forget to subscribe to the Roundtable, as well as our personal YouTube channels, all the links of which will be provided in the description. Thanks, guys, and we will see you on the next episode of the Filmmakers Roundtable.